Hi, and welcome to Brainstorm, Saskatchewan's only skeptical podcast, where we discuss news, politics, religion, and science in a somewhat intelligent manner. This is part 2 of episode 4, recorded on January 11th, 2014. In this part, Lana, Rene, Mike, and I will discuss the Friendly Atheist's predictions for 2014.
So I think we'll start off this part with this 5 predictions for 2014 from the Friendly Atheist.
Okay, what are those?
He's here. I'll click play on the first one.
Number 5, you will see what will become of the atheist church movement.
Okay, what do you guys think of the atheist church movement?
I think it's terrible to have a church.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
I kind of like the idea, but I don't think you really have to call it a church. Although people are going to, associate it with that type of idea. But basically, you're trying to build community for people. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of times women see more value in that. And that's one of the reasons why there's more women in church, regular church, than men. Right. Because there's the social aspects of it. There's the finding people to help, watch your kids or do things and play dates. And there's... It meets a need there.
Despite the fact that the actual religious church...
the religion part of it can be rather peripheral to the reasons why people choose to go to a church. For example, if you move to a new community, one of the best ways of meeting people and building a support network in a new community is to pick a church and go to it.
Okay.
And if you can hold your nose and, ignore any of the particular theology that you don't like and muddle along, you can do just fine. At the moment, we don't really have anything like that for non-believers, and that's one of the things that's holding a lot of people in church. They maybe don't buy it that much anymore, and they're not, but they'll go through the pro forma motions because it's the community that they want. And so I think that for the people that church community never appealed to them, it's unlikely that an atheist type community is going to appeal to them. But for people, especially that grew up in a church, that grew up having a sort of community where you get together every so often, talk about things, go out and do things together semi-regularly, I think there's some attraction to that. And you can sit down and listen to some talks and discuss them. And I
think that's a really excellent point. There's another TED Talk. It was Atheism 2.0 or something like that. And it was what we can learn from religion, from theism. And that's one of the things. It's that sense of community. That it's also spreading of values, and it's ritual and things like that.
That TED Talk actually left a kind of a bad taste with me.
Atheism 2.0.
Yeah, because it seemed to imply that we need this religious type ritual and religious type community when I don't feel that
really
at all.
Religious type.
I don't think the ritual, I'm not sure that the ritual, some people find it reassuring and nice. I think maybe that depends on your personality type, whether you enjoy that sort of ritual sort of thing or whether you're like, this is silly, why are we doing this? But I think there are good things about having a community type thing, even if there might be some that tend toward being more ritual, that are almost like a mainline kind of Christian thing, and other ones that are that don't use a lot of ritual, but have some really good community type aspects. Like maybe you just meet up in a pub once a month or twice a month, and
I could get onto that.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
So, but you know what? There's a lot of churches now that are starting to really try to think, well, we're doing community, we're doing a few talks, but trying to rethink how they're doing things. So, so they might be getting together and having a Bible study in a pub or some craziness like that. So I don't think you necessarily have to think along those straight lines of, now we are sitting in a church building and there's a pulpit and there's, that entire structure that everybody's so used to seeing. I don't think that's necessarily what you have to have in mind when people are thinking of community and something analogous to a church community, but for atheists, non-believers, and humanists.
It's the humanist part. It's the spreading of morality. I mean, the ritual that he was talking about in that TED Talk had more to do with affirming, say, certain ethical beliefs.
Right.
And to form a sort of ritual around that. And that's what we're missing without religion, is we're missing the constant, because you can't just, okay, well, I know that's true. I know it's true that things are this way, and, this is what morality is about. Affirming it once and then getting on with your life. The notion was that we need a sort of constant reaffirming to talk about it, to have some sort of community. I think that was the notion there. It seemed like an important point to me.
I can't recall the TED Talk specifically entirely, right? But I don't know. It just kind of, for me, it raised some, I was like, whoa, dude, you're really bringing up things that I don't need. I don't need any ritual. I don't need any kind of.
But what we're doing right here and now
is a sort of ritual.
It's a different type of ritual. And
that's what he's talking
different
about.
Things are going to appeal to different types of characters.
Yeah. And I do appreciate, there's a great atheist community, right? Which I appreciate. Which, Randy was talking about last time we recorded. Oh, you could probably just send anybody a message and they'd come on the podcast and talk with you or whatever. And that kind of community, I do appreciate it. But I don't know. That TED Talk, he seemed almost advocating for religion, but not the supernatural.
Yep.
And
he was advocating, he was trying to separate what's good and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I think in anything throughout history, you've got the wisdom and the folly.
That's true. Yeah,
you want to retain the wisdom and get rid of the folly. I think that it's up in the air whether he succeeded, but that's what he was trying to do.
So maybe we can say that his effort was good.
Yeah, I think
but it won't appeal to everyone.
Yeah, it's not going to appeal to everybody.
Well, I think the downside is also if you have an atheist church, you're just reaffirming how many of them attack atheism is
just another religion.
Just another religion. And it's the idea of a community is fine, but once you start putting up that structure of church, then,
That's why my original reaction was, this is a shit idea. That exact point.
And then even using the term ritual, I'm trying to remember back to my anthropology of religion where we actually separated the difference between, habit and ritual. We spit out the word ritual all the time. With ritual, there is definitely, if you're going to use it as the word ritual, there has to be a transitive. When you're doing this ritual, it has to change something. It's used that word ritual, but it's if you're keeping it within that construct of a church, then there's nothing wrong with the community aspect of it. But yeah, the idea of having an atheist church, it doesn't quite work.
Seems to muddy the whole notion.
Yeah.
It's a position like off as a TV channel, that sort of thing.
Right,
Or is it Bill
Maher? If we
said
a humanist gathering, it would be more appealing than an atheist church.
Yeah.
Right?
Here we're just quibbling over the semantics, though.
Yeah,
unfortunately, they seem important here, but
but they are important.
But then again, I'd say that's part of the. I'd say that might end up being if you try to organize an atheist church. I think that's what exactly you'd have is everyone quibbling over the semantics.
Yeah. So you just call it a fellowship.
Yeah, because let's face facts. You get more than
which is the kind of a churchy word, and everybody recognizes it.
Straight out of Lord of the Rings. Everybody will be into that.
All the nerds will like it.
Yeah, that's right.
The Fellowship of the Humanists.
Nice. I kind of skipped over it, but he's talking about how atheists are notoriously bad for getting into a group and agreeing on anything.
It's like herding cats.
Yes, yes. I don't think he uses that phrase, but
he should.
He should. I've heard it before. Mm-hmm.
I think there's an element of if you get too many atheists together, they're all trying so hard to show how smart they are, and
There's
Well,
a personality
I don't
and
know, we're all pretty
socialization
smart.
issue there. Perhaps.
I don't know. We never have issues here.
No.
No, I guess not.
Not really, but I've seen, other, like, say, debates or whatever, and it just seems to be, oh, no, you've got the wrong definition of that word, and that, and I don't know if it would...
You get too many pedants and semantic warriors going on.
Basically, I think if you start an atheist church, you're going to end up with an atheist reformation.
Yeah.
And schisms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've already had some schisms.
Yeah, I think so. Eh?
That might be unfortunately prophetic.
I think that you'd end up having, the separation of East and West.
Yeah. I'm a humanist atheist versus I'm a whatever atheist.
Libertarian atheist.
Libertarian atheist.
Yeah.
Or anarchist atheist.
Anarcho-syndicalist.
Yeah.
Some of us identify differently. Yeah.
Yeah. Because really, all it is absence of any particular belief in God. That says nothing particular about what your political beliefs
exactly.
or your...
You end up with
Anything.
atheists who still believe in ghosts.
Yep.
Who believe that homeopathy is efficacious.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just making your head explode.
But I think that's what you'd end up. I think is
Yeah. Alt-med
you'd have
atheists.
one guy super arrogant and declare himself the atheist pope.
Right. Eh?
That is a funny idea. Now that I think about it.
Oh my God.
I think Richard Dawkins already denied that.
Yeah.
I'm becoming more and more against the notion of an atheist church as we talk.
Right.
I think we've said all about the pros, but the cons are stacking up.
There are some cons.
I was actually thinking on the way up here about the Four Horsemen. Dennett, Hitchens, Dawkins, and Harris.
Thought you meant pestilence and famine.
And it's interesting to think, like, Hitchens died.
Mm-hmm.
Dennett has never really been in the spotlight. And Harris and
he's
Dawkins...
the heavyweight.
And he's the heavyweight. And Harris and Dawkins are getting left behind.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to think of them in that.
And they are... the remaining ones are getting rather old. Not Harris so much. But the
definitely
other two.
Dawkins, yeah.
Dawkins is...
Dennett is too, yeah.
And they both are. And they're, they may still... do some more things and write some books and things like that. But I think the baton has been passed, I think, in a lot of ways to the community that has sort of arisen in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's my sense. And to me, it was when Hitchens died, I sort of gave myself a kick in the pants and went, well, somebody has to fill that gap. And it's not going to be one person. It's going to be a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
That need to step up, and I think in a lot of ways that's happened.
There's a lot of good atheist spokespeople, but like I say, it just occurred to me that these two that are kind of been the spotlight ones are being left behind. Mm-hmm. Dennett, of course, is, I don't know. It's hard to
Dennett
does
a lot of work
anything that he
outside
says.
of that. So
yeah, he doesn't really stick to it, hey?
Yeah, he does a lot of work, but I mean, he's involved in all sorts of sort of atheist endeavors as well. So, but he's involved in a lot of different stuff, like neuroscience. And
right.
He's all over the map. So
I'm hearing more and more people disagreeing with Dawkins and considering him irrelevant almost. And I know before that, I heard a lot of people saying that about Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dawkins is an excellent voice for biology, for evolution. Yeah. Harris is completely made fun of by the philosophical community. He does a terrible disservice to philosophy. He really has... he even admits in his books that he's not interested in solving the philosophical problems. He's not interested in addressing any of the issues. So he's really into scientism.
Right, eh?
What he's into. The notion that science can solve everything. So he's sort of laughed at. He's chuckled at behind his back by all the philosophers. He really is a lightweight when it comes to philosophy.
Right, eh?
It's terrible for me to say that, but he knows it. So
he must.
He does. Yeah.
And I think Dawkins has put off a lot of people on a few different fronts.
Yeah, he's made some statements that a lot of people just go, okay, well, we can't agree with that.
Okay,
And,
Grandpa.
Yeah, that's
we'll
right.
carry on.
Yeah, that's right. Like he's the old guy that we just ignore now.
I know.
It's too bad. I know in a lot of ways I really like Richard Dawkins, but in a lot of ways I agree with the people who are saying, well, okay, we can't listen to you on this subject.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I love Harris too.
Right.
I mean, he has a lot of awesome things to say when it comes to atheism. He's rather witty when it comes to debates and whatnot. He's just garbage when it comes to actual philosophy.
I know we're not exactly fans of, I hate to name names, but really hates Harris because because Harris seems to advocate a kind of racial profiling, or maybe he's even said that directly. And I had to agree with you on that point. Was like we can't profile people as Muslim based on the color of their skin, which I've also had a recent discussion with someone else about.
Yeah, and I really don't think it's fair to, you're assuming anybody that looks foreign is Muslim and therefore a danger to you when that's really not a fair assessment. And I have read some, there was an article by the somebody in Israeli security that was talking about, the security systems that are in place in the U.S. and how they profile people. They said that's just a terrible way to run things. Really, what you have to be looking at is you have to be looking at people in the eye and see, and start picking out based on being able to watch for those tells of people that are freaking out, because a suicide bomber is not going to act like normal people. They are going to be really sketchy, and generally,
or almost unnervingly calm.
but people act differently.
Yeah.
And these are not the cream of the crop people that are blowing themselves up. These are people that have gotten somehow talked into this, and I don't think that most of the time they're that terrifically sophisticated at going unobserved. And the best test for that is the fact that most of the ones that have been caught have just been people noticed that they were looking really sketchy, and it's not necessarily that they are going to be looking necessarily Muslim, or that why if you were a suicide bomber, why would you go in there looking like
Right.
old school Muslim? That's a terrible disguise. So maybe they would pick people that don't look stereotypically Muslim to strap the bomb on. So it's like use techniques that actually work. And some of the countries that deal with this all the time, like Israel, have and parts of Europe seem to have rather good success rates at actually catching people, and they're not doing it based on racial profiling.
Well, then again, that's just it. Is the States they've never really had to deal with this kind of stuff prior to 9/11.
No.
They've never had this issue per se. I mean, little bit of stuff like Ruby Ridge and stuff every once in a while, but nothing on the same level.
And there was a guy pulled over with all kinds of guns and bombs in his car. Did anybody else see that?
No.
There was some guy that got pulled over at a traffic stop and was looking kind of dodgy. He had plans for blowing something up and a whole bunch of bombs in his car and a whole bunch of guns, and he was off to go blow something up. They pulled him over. He's not looking like a Muslim. He was a white
Right.
guy
Then again,
who was off to go blow something up.
Then again, you look at the history in the States, and other than 9/11, most of their stuff has been domestic.
Yeah, that's right.
Ruby Ridge, Waco,
Yeah.
like even
The Oklahoma.
Yeah, the
Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a really good
But they
example.
just say, oh, well, they're not terrorists. They're just crazy white people.
Right, as though, yeah.
That makes the distinction.
right? Like, we all know that's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I just was listening to an old episode of The Ardent Atheist,
Oh yeah.
and they had a guy who used to be a Hasidic Jew on there. And the Hasidic Jews apparently have this box that nobody is allowed to touch except for a rabbi. And he got pulled over by the cops. And they saw it in his trunk. And the cop was going to touch it and check it, but then couldn't because I'm a Jew and this is something that you can't touch. This is a religious thing. And I mean, the cop took off and hid or whatever, but this guy could have totally had anything in that box. Like, no, I mean, you could totally, I don't know what the hell you could be hiding, any bomb, any gun, and hide it behind a religious motivation and you'd be okay. I don't know. Seemed relevant.
What would you do in that situation? It's like taking away a person's religious freedom.
You make
Chuck it in
them
the
look
box.
in the box for you.
Yeah, I suppose.
Then again,
What if you can't look in the box, though?
Yeah. I don't think
Then
you're
you
even
X-ray
allowed
it.
to look in the box. Like he was just driving down the road, so I mean, he had no justifiable reason for search and seizure.
Well, then, yeah.
But if he was in an airport, what do you do? Do you X-ray it?
yeah.
Yep.
Is that okay through their religious
Well,
freedoms?
they are allowed to not get on the plane, to turn
That's
around
true.
and walk away.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
So-
there's reading an article about I can't remember exactly how it all worked, but how people have adjusted to modern living with their religious rules, and one of them being was Orthodox Jews in Israel, like the really super Orthodox ones, because they're not allowed to look upon women that aren't their wife or in their immediate family. So they wear glasses that purposely fuzz everyone out.
Wow. With glasses that make your vision bad. Eh?
Yeah, so you can't clearly see everyone.
Terrible.
Like it's just a goofy little ways around. And it's stupid. I think it's stupid.
Yeah, I have to agree. That is just, I don't know, silly, stupid, whatever you want to call it. That seems glasses that make everybody fuzzy.
Well, that way you're not breaking the rules.
Yeah. Shit. I guess we'll move on to the next one of these 5 predictions.
Number 4, I think we're going to find out in 2014 the fate of humanist chaplains in the military.
Okay.
What's that mean?
That's an American thing, really. I don't know what our Canadian situation is like in that.
I'm trying to think if there was a Canadian story about that.
I don't recall.
I don't remember.
But in the States, apparently they have tons of Christian chaplains, the occasional other religion, but zero like humanist, atheist for non-believers kind of chaplain counselors. I don't know if this is relevant to Canadians at all. I don't know.
Well, it wouldn't be particularly relevant to us. I think one of the reasons that they're wanting to have humanist chaplains is because the things that you tell your chaplain for counseling and all of that doesn't go on your file, basically.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And whereas if you tell your
Psychologist,
or your whatever social worker, counselor type person, that stuff goes on your file and it might be reflected in a performance report or, it might get you in trouble.
Right.
So there's a lot of things where you can talk to and get advice from somebody who is a chaplain and have it not affect you negatively. So to me, that's the only really good argument that way. And I guess there are some, it's nice to be able to talk to somebody about things in that kind of capacity. So I can see some need for it, but then it becomes hard to say that atheism isn't religion and humanism isn't religion when you're trying to get humanist chaplains in the military. So.
Yeah, how do you justify that kind of position without a religious connotation, right?
I can't remember the exact story, and I just tried to Google it, and of course can't quite narrow it down. But I remember there was something about I can't remember if it was in military or Navy, but there was a guy who was an out and out Satanist, and he demanded that he be recognized. And I can't remember if he got it or not, or whether it was just one of those.
Okay. That'd be cool, though.
Or was it somebody that had died and that wanted a Satanist symbol on their grave? Maybe.
Maybe. Well, it was. They were.
That can be an issue sometimes with, they would want to have, their own particular symbol in the military cemeteries, and sometimes those come up as problems.
Because I just remember there was a controversy over it, and because he kind of declared himself a Satanist and he wanted to be recognized and be able to practice his religion within the military, and there was an issue with it, obviously. Even though if you look into most Satanism, it had very little to do with the devil per se.
Okay.
And every time there has been a qualified humanist saying, I would like a position as a chaplain, the military has said no.
Okay. What counts as a qualified humanist?
Nothing really right now.
They probably have some kind of, I'm guessing, counseling degrees or something like that they would think that would make them more qualified.
Maybe to do that work, but not as a humanist.
Well, I guess
Right.
there are humanist organizations and people that lead humanist organizations and might be ordained as in humanist organizations.
In a
so maybe
sense.
that's what makes you
Maybe.
qualified.
I can't imagine much else making you qualified. I mean, you could be a professor of humanist ethics or something,
Is there such a thing? Like, is that a thing?
Well, there are professors who have specialized in the philosophy of morality, so
that would work. Yeah, maybe that would work.
maybe. They'd have to be recognized by a community, though.
They
Yeah.
can solve tricky moral conundrums for people.
He uses the
guess
term
so.
qualified human.
That is a good question. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I mean, that's whatever.
Outside of some sort of community affirmation.
Yeah, that's right, eh? Hi, just a quick break to remind everyone to follow us on Twitter at BrainstormPod and to like us on the Facebook page Brainstorm Podcast. Episodes are available on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Remember to give us a rating and write a review, as both improve the show's reach. It actually costs a bit to produce a podcast too, so any donations are more than welcome. Just click the donate button on our WordPress page, brainstormpodcastblog.wordpress.com. Okay.
The number 3 prediction I'm making is that other religious organizations will start doing what atheists have done and start fighting Christian privilege in the public square.
Okay, so
Aren't they already doing that?
I think when he made this prediction, the Satanists had already decided on their Oklahoma thing. I just heard a podcast talking about Hindus also doing this with their monkey god, whose name I can't remember.
That sounds like you're really kind of making fun of it, but anyway, yeah.
I don't mean to make fun of it any more than I make fun of Christians.
Yeah, fair enough, true enough, fair enough.
But like their Hindus want their statue, Satanists want their fucking kick-ass, badass statue there.
I thought it was funny that the videos about did you guys see that
My turn.
did you guys see the Facebook sites that got goated? Have you heard that
No,
whole
I
goated
don't.
phenomenon? Okay, and it's a little hard to get into it. But basically they've had these left-wing trolls that have taken over some right-wing sites and fill them with goats. And I thought, well, basically Oklahoma has now officially been goated because the Satanists have goated Oklahoma.
Have you seen pictures of the statue?
Yes.
It's totally badass.
It's badass.
It's awesome. With the pentacle and the friggin' goat-headed demon sitting there with kids beside it. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's the metalhead thing. I just fucking love it.
Oklahoma is being trolled right now.
Totally.
But
Well, absolutely.
they brought it
yeah.
on themselves.
That's right. By having the 10 Commandments, they declared that as a public space where anybody could put their shit.
They set up the conditions where any other religion was invited to bring their submissions for putting up a monument. So now you've got what you asked for.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it was also a little bit started in Florida, wasn't it, with the Festivus made out of beer cans?
Oh, yes.
That's awesome too.
Yeah.
You know, I just heard that Festivus was started by just one of the producers or writers of the show of Seinfeld.
Yeah, it was just a joke. Yeah,
Yeah, like his family did it or something.
yeah. It was
And
The Festivus for the rest of
and
us.
then they included it in an episode, and now it's a thing. Now we do it. I think that's great.
Well, that's how traditions start.
Yeah, somebody
For
just
Seinfeld
decides.
episodes.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
I think we talked
That's how
about
the
it.
best tradition started.
I think we talked about it in one of my. It was kind of an offhanded comment in one of my anthro classes where it's like to make it anything a tradition, all it takes is I think 3 generations.
Is that right? Well, Festivus has 2.
Yeah, so go one more and bam, it's locked in as a tradition.
Nice.
It was just an offhanded comment, but if you think about it, my parents did it and my grandparents did it, and most people that's as far back as they can remember. And suddenly that's what you have to do.
As long as it was started well back within living memory, it is a tradition, and the people that are very reluctant to change traditions will say, "Oh, this has always been this way." Well, no, actually, it's only been that way for a couple of generations.
Less than 100 years.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty funny stuff.
I think all it does is just prove that it's right in their constitution, separation of church and state,
Yep.
and it should stay that way. Because if you're going to open up that doorway,
Well, that's right. You open the floodgates, right?
every crackpot can get in there. You have the 10 Commandments, Satan, and then then you have the Pastafarian.
Well, the guys on
Scientologist.
Scientologists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why not? They're a religion.
Yeah, religion. Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
Mm-hmm.
They're as much a religion as Satanists, right? They must have at least the same numbers.
That's just Christianity, isn't it?
Sort of, yeah.
Being a Satanist.
Yeah.
It's just reversed
I don't
Christianity or something.
No, not
No.
quite. Not quite.
I don't know much about it, but I don't think they like being called reverse Christians.
Well, just because they don't like it doesn't make it not true.
Well, no, it's they take on as a symbol of rebellion.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know enough about it to
But I mean, we're talking about Judeo-Christian
speak
mythology.
authoritatively. It was
So-
maybe originally started by that idea, but I think it's got rather pagan roots, probably.
Just like Judeo-Christian mythology.
Yes.
Well, the thing is-
but I think it branches off a lot from expectations of Christianity that way.
Well, because I've done some
possibly.
reading onto it, and it was because I think if you stick with the more generalized study of Satanism, which is started by Anton LaVey in like 1969, I think they take Satan as a symbol. They don't believe in the supernatural god of Satan. They just take it as a symbol, as a symbol of rebellion, of being basically anti-Christian. And
The symbol of self-interest, isn't it?
yeah, like they believe in self-worship. They don't believe in a god, and if there is a god, it's them themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So like
But they do a lot of like wacky rituals. Like they really believe in kind of magic, right?
they perform magic rituals, but like I was saying earlier, I think a lot of it's a psychodrama for them. And LaVey was a circus performer. He loves pomp. He loved pomp and circumstance and the
Just,
flash, and to piss people off. He loved doing that.
Just a random listen. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to a Ross and Carrie podcast.
No.
They go and they test random things just by experiencing them.
Yeah.
And they joined kind of I think it was a Satanist cult. Just they went to a few things, and kind of paid their dues or whatever, and they basically read the book, and they said it really sounded like it was based around being pretentious.
It is. It's if you read into it, it's totally self-interest,
Right,
self-centered, and the worship of yourself. I was just reading it and I can't remember now. Like the seven deadly Satanist sins. It's like one of them is don't suffer anyone. I mean, don't allow anyone to be stupid in your presence, basically. Stuff like that.
I can relate to that.
I'd say look it up. I think there's certain elements of Satanism you'd actually like.
Yeah.
I think that applies to every religion, to be fair.
Oh, probably.
I mean, there's a lot I like about Buddhism, but it's the metaphysical baggage that comes with it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think with Satanism, mind you, it's Satanism, Scientology, and a lot of these newer religions, it's so hard to look at them as religions when they don't have the historical back. It was started in 1969. Scientology was started, I think, around the same time.
Yeah, possibly.
The only difference between a religion and a cult is longevity.
Right, eh?
Actually, my argument is actually number of people.
Yeah.
And that.
You have one or two, they're just nuts. You have 100 people, it's a cult. You have 100,000, it's a religion.
Yeah, I think I've heard that argument before too.
But there is that element of longevity too, and
Absolutely.
Well, and having a lot of people in it does contribute to the longevity, because if you only have 4 people left in your church, then
It doesn't- yeah.
it doesn't tend to survive.
No,
very
not
well.
very long. No.
Well, but it's not as though Mormonism has been around for a really long time.
No, but it's
it's
been considered a cult for a rather long time, and until fairly recently, basically until Mitt Romney ran for the presidency, and everyone decided, Mormon is officially not a cult anymore, according to the evangelicals, whereas last year it was.
Yeah.
I mean, mind you, Mormonism has breached that 100-year mark. Like, it's been around about 100.
I guess being a
100
branch
years
of
or
a major
150 years?
religion really counts too.
Yeah.
Like it gives you points or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like look
little
at Seventh-day
touch.
Adventists. That's a branch of Christianity, or Jehovah's Witness. Like I don't think they're old.
I think Jehovah's been around since the early 1900s, I think.
Okay. So if you give it 100 years,
Give it another 50 years, it'll be rather well established.
The Polynesian god has been around for a long time. Quetzalcoatl's been around forever. I mean, so is Zeus.
yeah,
So is Osiris.
still mythology, right?
I guess we would, but is that it's not really is that still considered a cult though? They wouldn't have been.
Oddly enough,
they're
they're all-
obsolete
It can
religions.
be. It can be, because they're in.
They were considered cults at the time, a lot of them.
Well, oddly enough, I actually have
Some of
encountered
them
a
were.
number of people who claim to be Loki worshippers, which strikes me as really odd. But
Dionysus.
They're just
was
Marvel
always a cult.
fanboys. They just like the Avengers a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
yeah,
Dionysus was
Fangirls,
always
you
thought
mean?
of as a cult.
they
Yeah.
like Loki.
And that was back when it was a major religion, the Greek mythology. But it was always the cult of Dionysus. So, I don't know. I'm
right.
not sure
So
what
it was
differentiates that.
always a cult. What made it always a cult?
Maybe the fact that they were crazy. No joke. Maybe that was it.
So inability
there is
to
a craziness component to something being long-term identified as a cult. It has to be not terrifically sustainable in terms of people being able to hang out in that for generations successfully. You have to always have to be attracting new people, because they have a habit of stopping their reproductions or getting themselves killed in some fashion. Maybe.
I have no idea.
Well, the cult of Dionysus, they just have fantastic orgies, and occasionally they'd skin one of their members alive and eat them.
So any locals can contact us.
I don't know about the skinning alive and eating. I don't know.
Yeah, I could skin
You
somebody.
mean you're not into that? Or?
No, I don't think I would be. No, I don't think so.
No.
Well, Dionysus was...
Depends how good the orgy is.
Yeah.
No.
That might turn you into a vegan, actually.
Nice.
Or at least a vegetarian.
At least, yeah.
Stay away from meat from now on.
Ew. Can we move on now?
Yes, we absolutely can.
This question of what will the religious makeup of Congress be after the midterm elections?
That means nothing to me, in a sense, right? Like,
I think it's going to be Christian.
there's still not going to be any atheists in
No.
positions of power, right?
It's a little
Not in
not
the US.
typically relevant as far as compared with some of his other questions and predictions and things.
Yeah. I mean, Australia had an atheist prime minister for a while.
But
Doesn't
now,
make a lot of difference.
apparently,
They have a
they're-
fundy.
Yeah, like they have some pretty hardcore anti-homosexual things going on right now.
Yeah. Well, their atheist prime minister is no longer in power. So
Yeah.
that was then. This is now.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I don't think it really
it's
make any
relevant to the
difference. Like
US.
they might change in that they won't have as many Bible thumping right wing Tea Party people, but it's political suicide down there to come out as an atheist or pretty much as anything other than Christian. Pretty
Right.
much, you have to have faith of some kind, otherwise you're not going to get elected.
Yep. False prediction. Good try.
Good try.
A few years ago, we had Pete Stark, a Democrat from California, say that, yes, he was a Unitarian, but he didn't believe in God. He was a non-theistic member of Congress, even though he labeled himself as a Unitarian, which allows for that. And he has been, in the modern era, like the only openly atheist politician that we know.
I just want to say he will continue to be the openly non-theistic politician. Like,
I'm not sure
just-
that there wasn't some elected in. I think there was one, and I don't think she might have been a lesbian. That got elected this last cycle,
Okay.
but I don't remember her name. But she wasn't right out saying, "I'm an atheist." She was just being
See, that's the thing, eh? Like, nobody can actually say that and still get elected.
yeah. But she was basically saying, "I'm not at all religious."
I was talking to a guy at work, actually. He said, I was talking to him about just random shit about the podcast and about life in general. And he says, you should go into politics. I think you'd be really good. And
People have told me that too.
I just said, I don't think atheists can go into politics and succeed. He says, well, what does that mean? Because he's new. I haven't talked to him before really much. So I said, well, an atheist is someone who doesn't believe in God. And he says, oh, and you're one of those. Yes, that's what I am. I don't see myself succeeding in politics ever.
You have to, there's a certain level of dishonesty that you have to really own up to.
Yeah.
To go into politics. Like if someone asks you if you've ever smoked pot, I'd say, well, yeah, and I would again if someone offered it. I mean, I won't own any because it's illegal to do so, but it's not illegal to get high. So
why the fuck not? Eh?
Yeah, I'll have a toke or two. Okay, so I just committed political suicide right fucking there just by being honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Rob Ford.
Yeah, well, do you think he'll get reelected?
Maybe.
Maybe. That's the funny part.
That is the funny part.
Yeah.
Maybe. Just because he is just such a train wreck that he might get elected just for the laughs.
And
They
on
always say
name
that he was a
recognition.
good mayor. That
That's true.
He's a fucking really weird person, but he was a really good mayor. That's what people say.
So does one's track record trump what you do in your personal life?
I don't know. Rob Ford will tell, I guess.
I would have
When
a
he
hard
runs for prime
time.
minister.
I would have a hard time not making inappropriate comments on camera.
Yeah.
So that I can't see doing very well with that.
I think I use the word fuck far too often. Like I really do. It's just
You have to have a certain personality because I mean Pierre Elliott Trudeau got away with it to an extent.
yeah.
He got in a lot of trouble for it too.
Yes, he did.
And he didn't be dropping F-bombs like every other day either.
No, he wasn't, but he did drop one or two, and I
Yeah.
might have said
And
fuddle duddle.
Fuddle-duddle.
Fuddle-duddle.
Reminds me of Christian. Stockwell gay. Gay? Well, what did I say? He was always pretending to be clueless. Oh, I don't speak English very well. Oh, okay.
You're
The
so
pepper
sure.
spray. I put it on my steak.
Yeah.
And this year, in 2012, Kirsten Sinema, a Democrat from Arizona, got elected, and we thought she was an atheist. She's the only unaffiliated member of Congress right now after Pete Stark got defeated. But she won't say she's an atheist. She won't come out and say she doesn't believe in God. She declares it pretty much a non-issue.
That's what I was talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
I thought her name was Kristen something.
Sounds
good.
Okay.
Yay me.
So I think a big story in 2014 is going to be, can an atheist get elected? Will there be an atheist elected anywhere in the country? And even if there are any candidates for office that will be openly atheist.
No.
Probably not in the U.S.
Not in 2014. Maybe later.
Maybe if we can look 5 years in the future.
Something like that.
If there is, it'll be anomalous.
Right, eh?
So
And
whatever.
they certainly won't get elected.
No.
And plausible candidates, not just, fringe third-party candidates. I'm always looking for that. I hope that happens. It would be nice to have a Congress that looks a little more like America. And America is 20 to 30% non-religious, depending on which group you're looking at. And
But the most vocal group is clearly religious, clearly Christian. It's
And the most active politically.
yeah.
Their politicians aren't elected by popular vote. They're elected by interest vote.
Yeah.
in a
And
sense.
that kind of
So-
has become a bigger issue in the last, 30 years? Well, it kind of got bigger in, say, the 80s with the moral majority or whatnot. And,
They mobilized the
Yeah.
churches to act as voting blocks.
yeah. And you could make the argument that it worked in the case of, like, say, Bush, but it's kind of not worked.
It works rather well, at least in non-presidential years,
Yeah,
like
like-
2014. They can drive some voter turnout with that as an organization, just by telling people it's very important that you go vote and drive people out to the polls and tell them, throw some anti-abortion stuff on the ballot and then tell everyone to get their butts out there and vote on it, and away they go. So it's basically clickbait for voting.
It's interesting that works on non-presidential years. Like 2016, we're not going to see that.
You don't see that predominate as much because people care more who their president is than who their local representative is in Congress or at the state level.
Right.
Mind you, with definitely more so down in the States, and I can't remember where I was watching it, but they were might have been Daily Show where they were talking about the whole gerrymandering thing, and they can't really do that in presidential elections, but they can redistrict and redistrict so that kind of stuff, that's how you get these nutty Republicans getting elected. And it just seems to be,
I think I saw something about that.
the churches can mobilize in those areas, and it gets these whack jobs elected.
Okay. I'll let this
now,
finish
like
this
less than 1% of Congress is openly non-religious, at least that they don't use a religious label. So it'd be nice for that to change. I don't know that it will, but every 2 years, I get a little more optimistic that we're going to see some more non-religious people run for office and get elected to office. So we'll see if that changes.
Hey, sorry for the interruption again. Just wanted to plug a couple things. First, the Center for Inquiry Regina is holding an event on March 9th, the Stand Up for Secularism Comedy Night, with Dusty Smith of the YouTube channel Cult of Dusty and local comedian Harris Kahn. Also, just to plug Roman Empire Studios, that's where we do all our recording for the podcast, and David Roman is our audio engineer here. For any recording needs you might have, check them out. I'll include links to both the CFI event and to Roman Empire Studios Facebook page in the show notes on our WordPress page, brainstormpodcastblog.wordpress.com.
The number one story that I'm going to be looking for in 2014 is that the Supreme Court will decide the case of Greece v. Galloway. And what will happen is we will find out the fate of all of those invocations that occur at things like city council meetings. Will they be allowed at all anywhere in the country? We'll find out. Will they be limited to a certain type of prayer that cannot be Christian? We'll find out. But
this has some relevance to us in Saskatchewan because of the prayer at the, whatever they call it, the community gathering, the city gathering in Saskatoon.
I don't know. I have a problem when people get so up in arms with some of this stuff. I know it's down in the States. There's definitely church and separation of church and state. I'm not sure. I think we're same thing up here in Canada.
It's not exactly the same. We don't have it quite written in.
It's not written in stone, I don't think.
There is something in the Bill of Rights. I have it hanging on my bedroom wall. So
I have no idea.
I think it's basically that they have to be treated more fairly, but there isn't as much of an explicit idea of the separation of it. So it tends to trickle in a little bit more, but there is still the expectation that one isn't going to be especially favored over the other. But we have this history of establishment of the churches as part of Canada, like the Francophone French churches, and then basically
that's
the
really
Anglican
dominant
church.
in some areas, right?
And then the French schools.
Yeah.
And
religious
schools.
That's
and that
part
kind
of the
thing.
French culture because it's so prominent.
The U.S. First Amendment is pretty explicit, though.
Yeah,
It's
but what I'm
separation.
just saying is a lot of people get up in arms on it, whereas I really personally don't care. But I don't see why they feel the need to have a prayer before a city council meeting.
Well,
why?
that's just it. Yeah, what's the relation? Hey,
I personally I don't care. Whatever, but I don't understand the relevance.
yeah, no, that's
Well,
there
it's
is no relevance.
You could ask, what's the relevance of having the Queen in all of our affairs?
There is
I
no
mean,
relevance.
there isn't, but she is the.
When was the last
It's a
time she
similar kind
actually
of thing.
vetoed one of our decisions?
It's a symbolic nod to God as the one in charge of the proceedings, in the same way as it's the nod to the Queen as in charge of our government.
I mean, that's
so
just it.
symbolism. Right?
Symbolism, but I guess.
Should we be using symbolism as a kind of a nod? Should we be nodding to symbolism?
Well, we do it all the time.
Should we be just saying okay, well, this is what we're doing?
Personally, I would prefer that, but I mean, we do nods to symbolism all the time.
Okay, so I'm going to stop part 2 here. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then tweet or share on Facebook. Feel free to contact us at brainstormpodcast@outlook.com, on Facebook at Brainstorm Podcast, or on Twitter at BrainstormPod. All relevant links for this episode can be found in the show notes on our WordPress site, brainstormpodcastblog.wordpress.com. Credit for the Friendly Atheist video goes to Hemant Mehta. Sorry if I said that wrong. Music for this episode was Letting Go by Rise Against. Remember to subscribe on iTunes or check us out on Stitcher. Give us a rating and write a review, and if you really like us and want to see the show grow, then click the donate button on our blog. Thanks again for listening. I should have the third part of episode 4 out this week, just in time to record episode 5.
Anyways.
I'll just I don't know.
Yeah. And silence fills the air.
I can't get to the exact spot for number 3, so we're gonna have to listen through this. I don't know. I can never say his name. The Friendly Atheist.
Hemant.
Okay.
Hemant.
Okay. He Hemant?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
I forgot my point.
Okay, start over. Start over. Gotta be more sober than this guy.
You wish.